What's going on, guys? And I have an important announcement. As you guys have seen on Facebook, the Warcry Podcast now has a merch store through Redbubble. What you'll do is you'll hit that link below, select the logo that you like. You know, we got a wolf logo, we got that Bigfoot scratch or the Dogman scratch logo. Once you select the logo, you'll go down, hit your styles. If you want a T-shirt, if you want a sweatshirt, or if you want different things, or a sticker or whatever. You'll select the color of that, and then your size, and then you hit that checkout button. And hitting that checkout button and getting that T-shirt supports the podcast. And I appreciate everyone that listens, and it's amazing, and I do truly appreciate it. But with that said, let's get to the episode. So run me my music. That's very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, I was like, oh, something's off.
I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something,
Get that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Yahola Tiger.
What's going on, y'all? And welcome to another edition, the 51st edition of the Warcry Podcast. I'm your host, Yahola Tiger. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about some Christmas stuff, and not really so much spooky, but just Christmas stuff in general. Man, I've been fighting to get this episode out to y'all. Been kind of sick the last few days. My whole household's been sick, so bear with me. But we're gonna get this episode out to y'all, or I am gonna get this episode out to y'all. But with this time of year, Christmas is being, I guess when this releases, it's gonna be 2 days away, I believe. We got Christmas Eve, 1.5, I guess. Well, 75. Anyways, who knows? 75 hours, whatever it is. and on this, like I said, on this episode, we're going to be talking about movies. We'll talk about a little bit of music, Christmas related. And we'll talk about some things, maybe some Christmas gifts that I had back in the day, or here recently, and you'll just talk about this different Christmas things and kind of keep it kind of light. I know last Christmas, I did a folklore of different kind of spooky things that go on at Christmas. There's a lot of it, but I talked about, kind of in broad terms of the different European philosophies of Christmas and different things like that, and the folklore behind Christmas. And not to be a damper, but, I know people always talk about, it's the birth of Jesus, but, it's just also very interesting that, the people always kind of get mad about the pagan type religion, and this is something that kind of hidden history that nobody really knows about Christmas, or really all holidays. But the pagan calendar, back in the old days, the Catholic Church and all these the Catholic Church mainly, but these churches, realized that the people were celebrating these holidays. And sometimes the people didn't really know what the holiday meant, but they still celebrated it. Well, the church back in, I want to say it was like the 1300s, 1400s. I had to look it right back up, but anyways, back in the day, they were just like, well, let's go ahead and make these into Christian holidays, or holidays that have a semblance to, our religion. And that's kind of where the birth of Jesus. I mean, do we know when Jesus was born? I mean, I guess some people can say yes, we do, but that's kind of, how that was turned. And the pagan holiday basically was off the equinox, or the winter solstice, not equinox, winter solstice. And so there's a lot of weird things if you look into Christmas and how the church had kind of turned it on its head a little bit when it comes to Christmas. And we celebrate Christmas as like a festive, type thing. And there's a lot of things that I could say about religion, about organized religion, that would make a lot of people unhappy, because there's a lot of things that, I guess it's hypocrisy, I guess you could say, but we're not going to talk about that. We'll get that down the road. We'll talk about that on another day. But Christmas, one of my favorite movies that I watch every year with Christmas is definitely. I haven't watched it this year, but one of my favorite Christmas movies ever is definitely the first Santa Claus with Tim Allen. And that, if y'all, I guess it's 90s babies. You know, we was raised on Santa Claus 3 when he was facing that ice demon or whatever. The guy with the ice froze or whatever, Frost or whatever his name is. If y'all remember that. But the first one is the classic, and I enjoyed that one a lot growing up. And like, one thing I like about Christmas movies that make me feel good inside, because there's sometimes throughout the year that I'm kind of a Scrooge on things. Like, I really am. I'm very particular about certain things in my life and certain way that I do things, and it can be kind of annoying to some, to people or, to my household or to my family. But I'm very particular on things, and this movie, as I've gotten older, has reminded me of that. Like, that's kind of me. Like, I'm like, nah. Or like, or the Scrooge, I guess the Scrooge guy, whatever. And so I kind of relate to that a little bit when you're kind of like, nah, I really don't want to, I'm over this, or, I don't really care about that, but it puts it into perspective till you kind of finally have to accept it, like, hey, maybe this is your path. Maybe this is where you're supposed to go. And with the Santa Claus first one, man, it's a classic to me. And now it's even more of a classic now because I can see myself, not in about Christmas. I absolutely love Christmas. But just certain aspects of that just make me kind of like, dang, okay. Kind of do a reflective look at, maybe I'm kind of like that too a little bit. I think we all kind of are in some aspects, but like, when I get over to kind of like music, like Christmas music also makes me feel like, makes me kind of remember all the, like, the good times. Like, I think about, and I know as you're listening to this, you're probably hearing me, you're probably thinking of your favorite Christmas song or a Christmas song that reminds you of someone that's passed. But one of my favorite Christmas songs ever in the world, and it's Blue Christmas by Elvis. And I remember being a young guy. It's kind of a crazy story. I might have told this before, but we went one Christmas. It was snowing like crazy, and we had just moved to where my parents live now, and we're making that trek to I'm losing my. We're making that trek to my grandma's house up in over there by 10 Killer Schools out in the middle of nowhere, and we're making that trek. And I remember it wasn't snowing when we got there, but it started storming so bad and snowing, and we basically listened to all the Christmas songs over the radio, and that's just, I know it was annoying for my parents because they had to like drive in that. But I remember sitting in the back seat of our red Chevy truck, 98, and, just kind of cruising along on this back, kind of making our way through as the storm is hitting and snowing like crazy. It just kind of makes me feel happy inside because I was like, man, that was the golden time, that time where all my grandparents on my dad's side were alive, and we just basically, visited them. And I remember my grandma was cooking, man, she had a way with different things, with different meals, and man, she could cook some stew, she could cook some beans, cornbread, like all that stuff. And I remember eating a ham over there, and it was a good time. All my uncles were there and cousins, and she had Elvis song playing in the background real low. And I remember it was Blue Christmas, and when she passed, I know that was something that was played at her funeral. But that's something I always think about. I know it's probably a minute detail or minute memory, and I really don't, being a young guy going over there, and I remember, I think football was on that night, or football, or some type of something going on with, and I'm a huge Rams fan, and the guy, his name was Al, stayed with my grandma. He was a 49ers fan, and so if Rams and 49ers, man, they've been rivals for a long time, and so we'd always be arguing, and it just reminds me of that Blue Christmas by Elvis. Just reminds me of those times, and it also reminds me of my aunt and my mom. My aunt on my mom's side and my mom this is kind of crazy, but they believed that Elvis was, still alive. I mean, I don't know, that's something we're going to talk about eventually, the conspiracy, but they thought that Elvis didn't really pass away. They faked his death, and he was still alive running around because he was so tired of the fame and fortune, and his manager leeching off of him and all that stuff. But yeah, it just reminds me of them too, because I remember, that's something Elvis was real big, and they had all the albums and things like that. But kind of going back to another movie that, kind of hits, I guess hits for us 90s babies, but also if you were a kid in the early 2000s, or if you were like a middle school kid, man, another classic is The Grinch. That's another one of those Scrooge type movies where he's like, man, I hate this, I hate that, and bah humbug and all that stuff, and turns out, getting his heart back, and it's just a classic movie. But another movie that kind of, that I don't think a lot of people have heard about or really seen, that's a Christmas movie. It's called Silent Night, and it's with Keira Knightley. I watched it this year. I start watching Christmas movies in like November, and when Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving is when I start watching Christmas movies and I start listening to Christmas music. And then I stop listening to it like the day after Christmas. But so I get about a month. It's like my nostalgia month is what I call it. But the movie Silent Night, it happens basically on Christmas, and they're all getting ready, and there's a mysterious disease basically taking over the country of England. And Keira Knightley and her husband basically are trying to put on this last feast. But it's a good movie. Go check it out. I'm not going to give it away because there is a twist at the end, and there's kind of a interesting plot point that I don't want to ruin. But go check it out. I believe it's on Shudder, but I also believe it was on, if you have the AMC channel, it might be on there too, if you have the streaming. But that's where I saw it. From one was Shudder. But super good movie, man. It was like, that movie reminds me of like those movies of old where like everybody in the family can't stand each other, or everybody's beefing, or somebody's got this with somebody or this. And but it's a good movie. I'd go check it out. It's called Silent Night. Another, as I'm just kind of thinking about music and movies here and kind of traditions, another Christmas song that I have grown, that I love is, that I listen to by different artists, but it's Merry Christmas Baby by, I think Otis Redding sings it. Brett Eldridge, if you like country music, Brett Eldridge sings that. If you like the indie, like the girl music, I think Kobe Calais sings it too. But that's one of my favorite songs, and one of my favorite versions is that slowed down version by Otis Redding. I'm a huge Otis Redding fan. Hasn't been in my top. I kind of keep him away because I'll listen to him for like 6 months straight and then kill it, kind of get tired of him. But classic music. Another song that comes to mind is Santa Baby. I think one of them is by Taylor Swift. Hey, you Swifties out there, y'all got me on one Taylor Swift song. I like Santa Baby from Taylor Swift. That's a great song, which is kind of crazy, but I'm not a Swiftie. That's just not my thing. But that's a great song. Another song is "Baby It's Cold Outside," and I like that one from Lady Antebellum. But I also like the classic too. I think that's with I don't know if it's Dean Martin. I think I like those two. The classic "Baby It's Cold Outside," and kind of just thinking about different, Christmas. Christmas here in Oklahoma, we rarely get like winter weather Christmas. I think the year that we had the ice, the ice storm. I can't remember if it was like '06, '07, '08. I can't remember exactly, but we hardly ever get a white winter or snowy winter or snowy Christmas. And and I didn't mean white winter. I was thinking of Game of Thrones too at the same time when I said that. Winter's coming anyways, but we never see a white Christmas, or we hardly ever see one. And so it's been kind of cool, as I reflect back on kind of young people days and when I was a young guy. One of my favorite presents that I ever received, and for us basketball players, former hoopers or current hoopers, if you're a hooper that listens to this, I was a huge soccer player. Basically, but as soon as I could play sports, I played soccer. And I was really good at it. I had good footwork. I could move side to side quickly. And, it was my favorite sport to play. But one year, my parents, I might have been first, second, or third grade. I can't exactly remember what year that was. But they had this big old box, and I was like losing my mind. Because when you're a little kid, and you try to you wake up after your parents go to bed, you kind of, or everything's settled, and you wake up and it's like 4, 5, and 6 in the morning. You're like, what is that? And you're looking, and there was this big old box sitting in front of that Christmas tree that year, and I'm like, what is that? And I was so excited, and every year it was like me and my brother took turns. Like one of us he woke me up, or I woke him up, and then as we got older, it was like, dang, it was like, Nate, wake up, boy. Like, let's go. Like, I was like maybe middle school or trying to see what was dropped off underneath the tree. But that year might have been my favorite Christmas. And the reason why is it shifted my love for soccer over to basketball. And my parents got the first ever basketball goal that we ever got. And that basketball goal has meant a lot to me because as I think about it now, there was blows, a bunch of blows done and fights and game-winning shots on that goal. But we put that goal out near our trailer house where we was living in Tahlequah. And, we played on that thing every day. And it shifted my love from playing soccer to basketball. And I remember being in second grade, basically, first grade, second grade started when you started school ball for Woodall. And I remember telling my parents I wanted to play basketball. Well, then they got me that basketball goal right in the middle of the season. And from then on, I was a student of the game of basketball. I would dare to say that I know more about the actual fundamental game of basketball than anyone besides people that have lived longer than me. People my age, the game is kind of lost. Like I can kind of see the game for like what it is and kind of find different strategic. And for you people that play Marcoma and you're listening, Marcoma League in Tahlequah at the Cherokee Nation gym, y'all know dang well I was taking old men and young high school kids, putting them on my back and winning games. Y'all can't deny that. Dang, I was out here, Michael Jordan. No, I'm just kidding. But that present, that Christmas present, changed my life forever, and I can't see myself being a soccer player. I'm a husky dude. Like I'm not by any means a little scrawny guy, and I wasn't when I was growing up. I was always kind of had a strong body to me. Dang, that's not kind of crazy, but anyways, but no, that gift changed my life forever. And like I said, I played on that thing. I remember we used to have this little baby toy chest, and the goal only went down to like 6 foot. And I'm like 4 feet 5 inches tall at this time, second, third grade. And I'm jumping on this thing to try to dunk it. And I just ain't had the bunnies like that. I ain't have the gift to jump. But I always tell, I mentioned this on the last episode, dribbling on grass is like, if you have a kid and they're like a younger kid and they're trying to work on their game, dribble on grass because that grass is unpredictable. And there's times in a game where you're like having to move your body and somebody tries to reach, and it just makes it easier to control that ball. But that's one of my favorite gifts ever. And another, I guess, favorite gift that I've ever gotten on Christmas was when my parents bought us the first ever PlayStation. Like, that was a crazy moment in my life, because before we was just playing, whatever we was playing, Nintendo, or I remember playing hours and hours and hours on that Nintendo 64. But when that first PlayStation came out, and we were like, nah, we don't want to shift, and then we got the PlayStation 2, man. Those are the dream days. And then the Xbox came out, and then another favorite gift I got was the Xbox 360 that I still have today, that I maintain and I make sure that it's in great working shape. I'm always going to vintage stock here in Oklahoma City, looking for the next part to replace on this bad boy. But when I think about getting the PlayStation and all that stuff, I remember one year for Christmas. I remember I got really sick. This is crazy, but I got really sick for Christmas one year, and all these kids are like, all of us grandkids, and we're over at my mom's parents' house. My nana and papa, and we're over there, and I'm sick as a dog in that bed, man. Throwing up, and I'm like, I can't drink nothing. I'm like, I just want a sip of bug juice. Dang, I threw that bug juice all up, man. I had purple throw up all over the place. But hey, man, that's them's the breaks. It feels like I always get sick around holidays, or I guess I'm kind of sick now. But Christmas means a lot to me, and it has always meant not really more for the religious aspect, more for the seeing family. And that's one thing about growing up that I always I kind of have an issue with is I don't get to see the family that I get to see hardly anymore. Like, it's mainly because I have my own family now. Like, I have my own kids that I gotta buy Christmas for, and there's other factors then that negate going to certain things. And I always miss the old days where being a younger kid and being a kid where you get to see both sets of grandparents, and now one set of grandparents is gone. So it makes me sad, but at the same time, it's like I'm happy because, hopefully I get to impart on my kids, a feeling of like tradition and how we do things. Because one thing that, my mom, she never really cooked because we always went everywhere else. But, what she's done when we were younger, she started cooking for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and so I always appreciated her for that, and I still do, and I'm hoping to make that, because I'm the cook. Like, I was cooking at like 5 years old. Like, as soon as I could learn how to turn a burner on, or like know how the microwave worked, I was cooking. Like, I was literally cooking. Kind of a funny story. It's not really Christmas related, but so my grandpa, my pawpaw tiger, he would come over and watch us during the summer times, and I'm like, hey, I always be like, hey, Papa, are you hungry? He's like, yeah, I could eat, and he could always eat. Every time we go to Chinese buffet, man, he had to undo the he had these little flannel things. I guess they're like little dress shirts that he wore. And they were always like different. It was the same pattern, but it was like always different colors. But he had to undo it. And he's like, boys, I'm done. But I made him French toast, and I make him, pancakes, or, I'm probably 6, 7, 8 years old. I'm a young guy, but I miss those days. And that's kind of what Christmas is for me, is kind of just reflecting back, but also too, at the same time, making sure that I push forward and get some things going. But I'm also kind of thinking of other movies that I've seen. I know we got Elf. I know that's a classic for everybody. Will Ferrell. There's another movie he's in here, recently. It's called Spirited. It's on Apple TV Plus. If you have that, if you do have, go check it out. It's pretty good. But geez, I'm trying not to sneeze on y'all. But a couple other kind of Christmas songs that I really love. I'm really into kind of southern rock, bluesy type music. And there's a guy named Casey James. I guess he's considered country in some songs, but he has a song called "I Like Christmas." That's a classic, great song. It's got that twang to it, but also has a little solo in it. Something about any songs with solos, I'm gonna listen, but sometimes they be cheeks, but that song was great. Man, a couple other songs that I'm thinking about off the top of my head are a few country songs. I know everyone likes "Run Run Rudolph" by Chuck Berry. That's a good song. Chuck Berry's kind of wild right now. Some of the stuff he was doing, but it's a good song. Another classic for me is "Please Come Home for Christmas." I know Hall & Oates did a song on that. Blake Shelton, I believe, did a song for that. I know Joe Nichols did a song for that. I know Rod Stewart did a song with that. But like I said, there's so many different songs out there, and when you guys hear this episode, and if you listen on Spotify, I'm gonna ask you a question. If so, once you see that you're viewing the episode, scroll down and you'll see two questions. I'm gonna ask you. Or it'll be one question, but it'll be a poll too. I'm gonna ask you what your favorite Christmas song is, and then I'll have a poll down there as well. Make sure you comment and like and subscribe, and like I said, guys, this is just kind of just a thinking back, and hopefully this episode gets you thinking about your maybe your best times on Christmas, and hopefully everybody's had good times at Christmas. I know sometimes things don't go your way in life, and just know that, hey, I was look at it this way, and I've always been told this from my dad and my grandpa, Papa Tiger. They always used to say it's gonna be rough now, but it ain't always gonna be rough, and you're all and you just got to keep moving forward. And like I said, if you haven't had the best Christmases, or things have been kind of tough, just my thought is just keep going, keep going. I know sometimes with soldiers and military people, they're gone and away for specific holidays, or they're gone for multiple years, but I always be thinking about those people too. That's another thing that I do think about, and I do do my thing when I think about them. They're my thoughts, and kind of sending that energy to them, and things like that, and prayers and things like that. Because that's rough, man. I just couldn't imagine being, in a different country, and you're like thousands of miles away from your family, man. That's brutal. I mean, so like I said, I was thinking about the military people that, they go over there and they do what they got to do for us, and maybe sometimes this podcast comes across as not, of like, oh, they're, whatever they're doing over there is bad, but no, I don't think that's the case, but I just always think about them, especially in holidays. I had my grandpa and YT Senior and Junior both served, and then before that, multiple family members, kind of branched out after that. So I always think about them, and it's funny, I always have this saved to my phone, but I think my dad has the actual paper cutting of Yahola newspaper doing a thing on Yahola Senior, and but yeah, like I said, I always think about them military people during Christmas. But one last thing before we go on this episode, I went longer than I expected to go, but hey, it is what it is. It's how this podcast roll. So everybody's seen kind of the latest on Bacone College, and I've shared a few opinions on Facebook and different things like that, but I'm gonna give you all my opinion on that. I think one thing that's very frustrating to me about Bacone, it's always been frustrating since my grandpa worked there, and I went to school there for about a year, well, a little over a year, because I had summer camp. One thing that's very frustrating is that school has always had administrators who have not cared about the students there. and some of the faculty. You know, a famous story that I tell, and I call it famous because I tell it so much, and it's been a known story. But like when people were getting laid off in the '90s at Bacone, you know, they were trying to get rid of everybody. I mean, just now, even today, they cut 45 instructors because they can't meet bills, and then, you know, then they go back and hire people or hire more people. Then they get back into the same circle. But my grandpa, he used to laugh because he said, "Yeah, I never got fired from there." He said, "I had this way of disappearing. I can kind of fade into the background." And lo and behold, man, they were firing people left and right, and they were like, you know, he was just laying low, just wasn't saying much, just, you know, helping the kids out and keeping it moving. And one day they were all in a meeting. They go, "Tiger, I thought we fired you." He said, I laughed. He said, "You ain't gonna get rid of me that easy." And so he laughed, and he always told that story. But that just goes to show, man, it's like the administrative people at Bacone just have let that school down. Like, man, I can't tell you how many, and people that have went to school there, if you listen to this and you're like, "Man, I went there back in the 90s or 80s. I went there in 2013 and it was in bad shape. Like, some of the stories I could tell y'all about that dang school and just seeing the craziness going on. I mean, you couldn't walk around at that school at night, man. You couldn't. Like, people be taking your stuff, or unless they knew you, that, you know, they leave you alone. But if you were somebody who was visiting a relative, or if you were visiting your cousin or your sister, brother, man, they would do all types of crap to you, man. Like, they'd mess with you and just do all types of stuff. And I've seen it firsthand on a few occasions, people getting their stuff stolen or breaking into their dorms. And if y'all remember, if y'all from the Muskogee area, they used to have this old hotel that converted into the dorms for the basketball players, and I believe some football players and different people like that. And man, I mean, I'll tell y'all a crazy story, but like, I was in the dorms one night. We were all playing, I think we were playing 2K, and we were all just hanging out after practice. And I'm like, "What does that smell?" And at the time, one of the guys who was a freshman with me, he was like, he's like, "Man, we smell that from time to time. We think someone's over there cleaning." And I'm like, "I don't know about that. Like, I've smelled that before. Like, not saying I like did it or anything, but you can tell when somebody smells that way, they're doing something crazy." Well, come to find out, like a couple days later, they end up getting like a complaint filed on them, and somebody was in the bathroom cooking large batches of meth in those dorms. That was crazy. I was like, man, and it was like the adjacent dorm, and these dorms they have outside doors, so it's not like it's a hallway. It's like outside. Like, one time I had at the end of the semester for the winter, everybody's kind of moving out and moving their stuff, because sometimes you get replaced, and Bacone was always weird about that. They'd send you over here, send you over there. And one guy had his TV outside. It was like a 35, 34, maybe 46. It wasn't like a monster TV, but it was big enough. And I'm sitting out there picking one of my teammates up who lives out in Old Mulgee, and we was hanging out. And we watched this guy get his TV. He basically set it outside, went to turn the door, and somebody had come by and took the TV. Just like took off. Man, he was like, he was looking around. He's all like, what? Like, literally just turned around and locked the door, and TV was gone. Nowhere to be found. But that was Bacone, man. That was the cone. And, you know, there's a crazy story about a teammate of mine who was on the run for like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I can't remember how long, but he was on the run for a while, and he slapped a girl in front of everybody at the cafeteria. Dang, he gave her that pinky slap too off Friday. Friday After Next is another good Christmas movie. Dang, that pinky slap, double backhand, and took off, boy. And he was playing a game still. It was crazy. I think the night he got arrested, he dropped like 25. I mean, he had a good night that night, but he got arrested after the game because they finally caught him. But it's just crazy stuff like that, man. There's all types of crazy stuff, but yeah, I hope the Bacone College in Muskogee, man. I hope something happens. I know that they recalled the auction, and now that there's different people reaching, different people in different tribes and different things like that are basically kind of begging people to see what they can do to help this college, because the college is so historic. The first ever college. It used to be a residential school back in the day. And, as it's formed into the college, Merle Home Children's, I think it's Children's Housing, is over there kind of on the opposite side, not on the main street, not on Shawnee, but it's on that side street. York, I believe. And, they're still going. I told this on Facebook, but I believe my great-grandpa, Yahola Sr., and his brother were there, lived there. So my family has connections to all over that area, and Merle Home, and it's Merle Home Children's Housing, not the park in Tahlequah, and then Bacone. So I hope the cone. I hope the cone hangs around. I remember hearing some stories. My grandpa was, like I said, was an academic advisor there for a while, and he'd always tell stories about some people that he, running around with and coworkers. And dang, I'll tell you a crazy story. So I had it's not crazy, but it's just kind of like, at the time I'm like 18, 19 years old, and I had this math teacher who knew my grandpa really well, like they were friends. And man, I was flunking out in that class. I was barely eligible to play basketball, and I'm so terrible at math, guys. Like when it comes to like 1 + 1, obviously, come on now, I ain't that dumb. I ain't slow, but like when you start getting into like the fractions and the little number, what do they call it, exponents or whatever, y'all lost me. But math is just crazy. But basically, she passed me, and this is terrible to say this, but I'm pretty sure she passed me because she knew my grandpa. And she was like, "Man, we gotta get you out of here." Like, college algebra means here's another thing too. What is the point of college algebra? I'm not gonna be using none of this mess unless I'm going to accounting. Anyways, but yeah, I I hope that college, man. I hope Bacone College continues to keep going. I know that there's plans to continue the spring and basically graduate the seniors. And then they're looking at maybe doing a full revamp, maybe going to online only. Hopefully, like I said, that college, I just hope that college continues to run. And that's kind of my thoughts. I got some, I guess really not all my thoughts, but, one thing I don't really like about the situation is I don't understand why Bacone had to go all the way out to Utah to find contractors. And then, better yet, the guy who owns that did work on Bacone without their authorization. He just came down and did it. And the former president, I don't know what he was doing. That dude was wilding out. I don't know. There's just a lot of weirdness about that. And for him to try to take over and be like, you know what, I'm going to buy it, and just be like, I'm going to make sure, we want to make sure that these Indians have their plan in place because they can't do nothing on their own. I'll make sure that they handle their finances correctly. That's just a nasty line to me. That's a nasty statement. Because for me, I think that's one thing that I get irritated with just in my professional life is I think some people got this opinion of Indians that we don't know how to do nothing. All we know how to do is bead and do all this other stuff. Like we just stick to our culture and we don't know nothing else. And that's not true for any of us. And I think that's one thing that makes me irritated about that line that he said, and I think it was in News on 4, I believe. Is I'll look at their business plan and I'll approve whether they can continue or not. Like he holds the key to that. I just know that whole situation is just rugged to me, and I just hope, like I said, I hope that they get out from underneath this dude who's trying to buy Bacon. Like, I see some people pushing back, like, oh, that's not colonization, but that's how colonization was. That's how that takes off. Oh, well, we're just gonna buy this land from out front of these stupid Indians. That's what they did. We can call a spade, but some of y'all ancestors did that. We're not gonna talk about the Drummonds up in Pawhuska. We ain't gonna talk about them. Well, I ain't gonna talk about them on this episode. But it's just it's very dicey to me that this is the route that he chose to do. You know, and the route that, you know, this new administration basically was trying to figure out payments to this guy, and he was like, "No, it's just another stall tactic. I see what y'all Indians are doing to the governor. I ain't feeling all that, you know." But that's my opinion on it, and like I said, I hope Bacon continues, and I hope you guys continue listening to the podcast because we're gonna be cranking them out. This is Creepy Part 5. I'm getting all the stories, you know, collected and written in a way that I can read them. Not say anything, but sometimes autocorrect kills us, and so, you know, I always got to make sure that, you know, when I'm reading it, I'm not like messing up and trying to like make it not into what this person's saying. And but like I said, stories are coming in. So if you have a story, you can message me on Facebook, Yahola Tiger, TikTok, Warcry Pod, Instagram, Warcry Pod, and then obviously on Facebook, Yahola Tiger. Also, Warcry Podcast on Facebook, and the email. If you want to send if you want to send a long email with no, you know, restrictions on your characters, is real warcrypod@gmail.com. Like I said, guys, 2024 is going to be a big year for the Warcry Podcast. You know, I'm right now. I've had a few people reach out about being a guest, and like I said, we're going to be doing more guests in 2024. Eventually, I'm going to try to get out to different, you know, locations, and like I said, who knows what's going to happen in 2024? I got some professional things that I'm moving into in 2024, and so I may be less on the podcast. It might be like once every 3 weeks. I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out, but I appreciate everyone that has continued to support the podcast, and you know, I guess I'll catch y'all on the next one.